Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining us for this Quality Data In and Data Out webinar. My name is Jackson Van Buskirk. I'm a technical account manager here at Listrak, and today we'll be discussing how we manage contact data in Listrak. Today's agenda, we're going to cover an overview of several different areas as to how we manage contact data in Listrak. And we'll be also talking about how those data management programs can maximize your marketing potential through Listrak services. Next up, we're going to be talking about our retail data and commerce data and how we can maximize that potential as the next stepping stone for your data program in Listrak. From there, in later sessions, we'll be talking about effective ways to use Listrak's data export tools, either through API, FTP, and other sources. Contact data in Listrak can come from lots of different places. The first place we'll talk about is channel subscription. Whether you're using APIs or list imports, specifying the channel and the contact is all a key part of subscribing contacts to Listrak. There are automated recurring list import options. There are single one-time imports for that necessary piece of data for an upcoming program. Several different options for simple, basic channel subscription for your contacts. As well, Listrak over time builds customer profiles. And as you implement commerce data and importing that into Listrak, that can stack on top of your existing contact data as well, building a fuller and more well-rounded picture of your contact. As well, there are all kinds of different e-commerce and retail store elements and programs that are going to be building on top of your contact data as well. Things like loyalty programs, on-site tracking, all of these retail and e-commerce oriented options, those contact sources will also be building on the same layer of contact data. Let's talk about specific ways we get data into Listrak. Let's cover file imports first, as they're fairly straightforward. First off, I should note that Listrak offers external or internal or a Listrak hosted FTP solution. So if you would like to import contacts into Listrak on a recurring basis, you can do so using either your own self-hosted FTP solution or Listrak's. Of course, our user interface offers the ability to log in and import a contact list either to SMS or email in a one-time fashion as well. And all of the rules are the same between those two methods. Importing on a recurring basis or a one-time basis, the user interface and experience is unified between those. The same sets of data can be imported for your contact in a one-time basis as well as on a recurring basis. And we'll cover file imports a little bit later. In addition to file imports, Listrak offers a suite of APIs that can be used to update or create contact data in Listrak. Our email REST API has been in service for quite a while, and many of our clients are using this to automate all contact data sent to Listrak. You can trigger automations with our email REST API, update contact data on specific lists. You can subscribe and unsubscribe and manage that subscription layer with your contacts through the email REST API. Similarly, for the SMS channel, you can use our SMS REST API. In this, you can similarly trigger automations, update contact details, things like that. With our cross-channel REST API, you can send in both an email and a phone number to utilize a cross-channel journey in Listrak. Cross-channel journeys can be optimized to send the right message in the right channel per that contact activity. The cross-channel API sends in several different values that journey can then use for personalization or other automated programs. Our data import REST API allows you to import your commerce data into Listrak, things like products, orders, and customers. And of course, order information and customer information are key parts of a contact's set of information, and all of these elements build on top of each other and can be referenced and used in marketing programs through Listrak. Another area that I want to speak to is our service layer. All of our on-site activity tracking or contact acquisition points throughout your website, or post-purchase campaigns that are triggered from an order on site. These are service layers that can also create contacts in your lists and programs, update those contacts with new information, and trigger automations to utilize shopping cart abandonment information, product browse abandonment information, post-purchase campaigns as we see here, and other programs as well. Now let's discuss how you can maximize your contact data in Listrak. The first example I'll point to is our broadcast campaign segments. For the data that you're sending into Listrak, subscribing contacts and updating different profile fields and elements relating to that contact, you can use that information to specify and target segments in your customer base. Contacts that have opted into your marketing program can be tracked. You can review those audiences and send messages specifically to those audiences by using the contact data you send to Listrak. Beyond just specifying which contacts should receive which message, we can also utilize the data we send in our content. Whether you're displaying something simple as how many rewards points you have collected, or first name information, or things like your cart that you recently abandoned or the product you browsed, the contact data imported into Listrak not only segments contacts for various audiences, but is also used in the content display. As you're both importing contact data to specify which segments and audiences a contact might be in, as well as personalized information to display in your content, this data can be merged together to build a robust automated campaign customization with certain acquisition points displaying contextual information. Hey, thank you for signing up and creating an account. Or beyond that, loyalty information that is responsive to the loyalty data you're importing into Listrak each day to specify their points value and tier value. Beyond that, with our solutions that we offer, such as shopping cart abandonment and browse abandonment, as we've mentioned, we can tune that content to maximize the data potential to show exactly what was in their cart, sort items in a specific way because we've collected price and all of this additional information that's sent over in that service layer we mentioned a moment ago. The automated campaign customization is nearly endless, and a robust set of contact data that you're sending in to support these programs only adds to the experience that your shoppers will have in terms of personalization and reachability. Let's take a look at some of these examples together. The first example we'll cover is a simple list import. While the technology and process in our user interface is very simple, it is very powerful as well. Let's take a look. The first example we're going to walk through today is importing a file through Listrak's Import List Wizard. To reach this page, you can head to Contacts, Import List Wizard. On this page, you'll have the option to create a one-time import, which is where you'll just import a single file one time into Listrak, or you can configure a recurring import. A recurring import allows you to choose an FTP integration and set up a file name where our FTP will start to listen for that file name. If it sees it matching the file name specified here, it will import the file according to all of the rules set up in the subsequent steps. Today, we're just going to choose a one-time import. Beyond the FTP integration selection, the process is the same. I'm going to choose one-time import. I'm going to choose my file. Select that. In this case, we're going to be importing loyalty data into the email channel. So we're going to be mapping a couple key values from this file to support my loyalty program with important information that I can use as content personalization, as well as subscribe the email address to my list. Let's take a look at a couple options up top. These are fairly straightforward. Does the first line in our file contain column names? Yes. No text qualifiers, and a key value is if a subscriber already exists in the lists, I want to update the specified fields. Configuration options, if you have, such as a point of sale source of data or other values where content may or may not want to be subscribed to your list, but the file contains both groups, you can specify if there's a value in that file, which contacts should be subscribed. Today, I want all of my contacts subscribed to my list and their loyalty data updated. Import trigger settings. We can have this import trigger a custom event or be added to any list subscription-based journeys associated with this list. These are the settings you would consider if you'd like to have this import interact with a journey. Today, I'm going to just map the values that are in my column and since in my files columns. And since this is an email import, we're just going to ignore the phone column today. Email address has account points balance, VIP tier name, and a contact ID. Let's talk through some of these values. And what we share here is going to persist for any use case, whether that's loyalty or any other program where you're importing contact information into Listrak 4. Listrak will look at your file and try and match that file's column names against what profile fields you have in Listrak. That's already been done here, but I want to show you the user interface where you can consider the column in your file and then consider what profile field do I actually want this data to be stored in. Listrak has already auto-selected based on the titles of my columns, which is very helpful, and I'm going to leave this as is. I have a marker to note the contact has a loyalty account. I'm going to import their points balance because I want that to be displayed, and I also want to display their tier name for what tier in our loyalty program they're a part of. Now, on my end, I do manage all of my contacts, regardless of whether they've opted into marketing or not, with a contact ID. This is a value that comes out of Listrak. Perhaps it's set in my order management system or my CRM that we manage internally outside of Listrak. Listrak offers the external contact ID system field, which is a way for you to specify what you want this contact's ID to be. We're going to return to this external contact ID as this can help personalize the on-site experience when you click through a loyalty email. Can the website identify who I am and interact with my other third-party loyalty vendor information that might be running on site? So we'll be returning to this value in a bit. I'm going to proceed to my next step. We're now on the last step where we can import our file, and I just wanted to visualize what's happening here on this page. We have our email addresses that are importing. We have true and false Boolean values for our has account profile field, as well as our balances and our VIP tier names. Our last contact on this file is not part of our loyalty program, but they do intend to subscribe to our marketing program, so we've included them in the import. At this point, as long as all of our values look good, we can go ahead and import this file. Now, I've walked through this import list wizard process. It's fairly simple, and you can always visit our help center if you'd like tips and tricks on how to use this tool. But the process we've engaged with here matches almost identical to other import options that are available for Listrak. For example, the import type, do we add or just update subscribers? The options that we configure in this list import wizard are true with any import or subscription service that we offer, in most cases. I think our next example we can talk through is subscribing a contact via API and how some of these values are very similar between the import list wizard and our API request. All right, we've walked through how to import a file into Listrak, and we've talked about how many of the options and considerations with that file exist in other places too, such as using our email REST API. If you've used any of Listrak's APIs, they function very similarly, especially with authentication. But I just wanted to help visualize what an API request looks like and how it is very similar in what it needs to consider to a list import. For example, if we take a look at the URL of the API request, we'll need to specify the list ID. Which list do I want to import this contact into? As well, there are some other things we can consider. What external event IDs would I like to trigger in this request? If they are unsubscribed, do I want to override unsubscribe? Do note that this is actually not a feature available in our list import service, as that's a very precious thing to consider, whether we should be overriding a contact's unsubscribe. We can specify if the contacts subscribe to themselves, and that's noted in the platform's analytics. We can send a double opt-in message as well as an update type. If we recall our list import wizard, whether that was update or perhaps overwrite. And we can also specify if we are migrating a contact's email to a new email, where we will take all of the profile data and apply it to a new email address. Let's take a look at the body of the request as well. The request specifies the email address, and it does note the subscription state. We can change this to subscribed and unsubscribed back and forth as the contact on site is making subscribe and unsubscribe actions. Here's the external contact ID. That was a value we were importing in our file. We can also specify that here through our API. And now here's kind of the meat and potatoes of the request. What data fields do I want to update for this contact? In this case, I've specified a few different ones. For example, the first name. These are specified by API IDs, and you can find this on the API ID information page in Listrak if you need to look up an ID for any of the values referenced here. As well, I do have another member ID that's unrelated to my contact ID or other things. We have a Boolean value I've added just as an example. We can, of course, import Boolean values through our API. As well, I have another integer value that I wanted to import. This was my points balance and the current loyalty tier that this contact is at. So all of the same information that's imported through that file can be sent via API, and of course in a programmatic and automated way. But I always like to think about how does the import list wizard do this, and what does the API do as well that's similar to that? These questions are generally lead to the same answer. Now that we've taken a look at an API example, I want to take a look at our on-site service layer that is going to be updating contact information. Here we have style.com, where we sell all kinds of apparel products. I want to show an example of how our on-site activity tracking also updates and interacts with your contact records. Of course, acquisition is step number one. We're going to take a look at the network tools in the developer console to track this activity and see this action happen in real time. I'm going to go ahead and sign up an email address. And if I click out of this box, I haven't submitted it, I do see that my email identification request occurred. This is step number one for creating a session ID where the rest of our tracking services can start to build on the same contact profile. After we've identified the contact, other services can start to relate to that contact. So we have our email identified. I want to show an example of browsing a product. Let's go ahead and take a look at black leather bags here. We're going to click through, and I'm going to clear this network activity. And let's see what values load. Okay, quite a bit of activity on our demo site here, and I do see our product browse request. Similar to that email identification request, we see that the product browse event has been tracked for my contact. That global session UID has been linked, and so now this activity is associated to that same email address that I just entered a moment ago. And beyond that, I now have the SKU that has been browsed. And so this is an area where the coordination of several points of data you're importing into Listrak start to work together. We have a contact that just subscribed to the list. We have activity being tracked, such as product browses here. And we see that only the SKU is sent over. Listrak carries your product data as part of your commerce data that you import, and that's what gets referenced when we start to send out a personalized message for a contact. So here's just an example of how our service layer on site is going to update the same contact records that you're importing and sending over via API or for other options as well. Now that we've walked through a few different examples as to how contact data reaches Listrak, I wanted to take a moment to go and review that contact that was imported and updated, just to show how we can validate our imports and various update services to make sure the data is accurate and displaying how we'd like it to display. Of course, accurate data is critical for excellent personalized content in your email messages. So to see your contacts that have recently subscribed, in this case, the contact I imported was subscribed to the list. I'm going to head to Contacts, View Subscribed Contacts, and find my contact that was in the import I performed. In this case, I have the email right here. And let's cross-reference some of the values from our import that we performed. I did note that this contact has a loyalty account. I also imported their points balance. That's present here and accurate according to my file. And I also want to make sure their tier came in. Yes, the premier tier, which is where this contact is at in my loyalty program, also imported successfully. So through this same method, you can view your contacts on specific lists to validate the information you're importing into Listrak. I often work with technical teams who want to take a pass at their contact in the Listrak UI and make sure that the way they're interacting with that contact via API or FTP automated imports or acquisition information that's being captured on site is captured here, displayed here, so that it can be personalized in a message's content. Now that we've validated the data that's being imported to Listrak, whether that's through an automated import via FTP, using one of our APIs, or an on-site acquisition point where someone has signed up for the marketing program, we want to actually use that data. Let's see how that works in an email message. In this case, I've headed to a saved message that I've been working on, and I want this message to be highly personalized. At the start, I have edited my subject line to include the contact's first name using one of our personalization fields, which are ways to show a profile field's information in your content in Listrak. In this case, I've chosen the first name, and I've also provided a default just in case our contact didn't have a first name provided in their profile field. There's a couple other areas in the Listrak message that we have added personalization. In this case, we've added a URL key to be applied as a custom parameter that applies at the end of a link. If you click through that link, you'll see this value, the customer information contact ID. This is a value that was a custom value that was imported into Listrak, will appear on the CID parameter. Let's take a look at a message design to see how personalization and the data that we are importing into Listrak is actually used in message design. For this message, I wanted to display certain information if a contact is a loyalty program member, and if they're not a loyalty program member, I want to include a call to action to get them to join our loyalty program. So in this case, we're going to be using dynamic content. I do have two different variations, a loyalty member variation and a non-loyalty member variation. I've created a filter. If we recall, the has account checkbox that we imported as a Boolean value can be used to determine if a contact is a member of the loyalty program or not. In this case, if they do have an account and that checkbox is checked through our import that we performed, the loyalty member version will display. Now, not only will the loyalty member version display based on that data we've imported, but we can actually use that data in the content itself. I've included the points balance personalization field to display the points that my contact has. Now, if I'm a non-loyalty member, if has account is not checked, I want to include a call to action where you can click here to join our loyalty program. We've set that up in the variation filter that again uses those same values that we've imported previously. That concludes today's training, where we have reviewed how to import contact data, how it's utilized in our platform to personalize messages, how it's utilized to build robust automated marketing programs to represent items you've added to your cart, browsed, other elements like that, loyalty program values. Thank you for joining us and reviewing this information. Next up, we're going to see how commerce data can be used to maximize the potential of your marketing programs through Listrak.